Joe. Boy, after listening to these comments, I kept changing my notes as I was going through this. A lot of good ideas. When I'm not in the state legislature, I live in Yuma. Like some of the folks that you were referring to, Todd, as a rural legislator, I leave my family as well and come up here to Phoenix. I know what it's like. But my district is in Yuma, right along the U.S.-Mexico border. I'm a custom house broker by profession and have been engaged in international trade my entire life with Mexico. My family's been in this business since the turn of the last century, so I have a lot of experience on the border. Ironically, last night I was at a dinner in Mexico celebrating anniversaries for employees that our company has that are legal employees on the U.S. side and legal on the Mexican side, but because of the difficulties in crossing the border, I spent half an hour going south, and I spent, and this is at 11 o'clock coming home last night, I spent over an hour coming back. And but we had this celebration of my employees and the many years they've worked, and the reason I want to bring that up is there's two Mexicos. There's the Mexico that we know and love, that we have friends and relatives that we recreate and do business with, and it's still there, and it's alive and vital, and a great opportunity for Arizona and helping its economic recovery. Then there's the other Mexico, the not so nice part of Mexico, the underworld that is dealing with the issues of through the cartels of bringing illegals across as well as the drugs. 9/11 fundamentally changed everything. I mean, it was like one day crossed the border very easily, and the next day it was shut down. And we can't get away from that. I mean, what was mentioned by Mr. Montgomery is absolutely true. The types of people that are being apprehended from all over the world, we are at risk, and so we do have to secure the borders. That's when the Border Security Committee was Joint Border Security Committee was created. I asked to be one of the co-chairs for the reason that I wanted to, having an experience with the border, I truly wanted to look at how can we secure the border and still have safe and legal trade with Mexico. And that's kind of a tall order, but I want to share a couple things. Mexico is the number three trade partner with the United States for international trade, behind China and Canada. Mexico is the #1 trading partner for 39 of the 50 states in the United States. Arizona is 4th, behind Michigan, California, and Texas. But again, our #1 international trade partner is Mexico. It represents over $20 billion in trade annually for the state of Arizona. And that's just the commercial trade. We're not talking about the other kind of retail trade from the over 25 million legal crossers that cross every year through our 6 ports of entry along our borders. This represents an incredible part of our Arizona economy and a great opportunity. Interestingly enough, when someone mentioned a hiccup, so Canada and Mexico also faced downturns in their economies. Guess what? Their GDPs now more than double what ours do in the United States. They're recovering faster and growing faster economically out of the Great Recession than we are in the United States, and certainly us, what we're doing here in Arizona. Not too many years ago, I recall in my part of Arizona and the Mexico border, kidnappings were almost a daily occurrence. Automatic weapons could be heard firing on the Mexican side. This is in San Luis. People were afraid to go out at night. The press were being murdered, blown up. There were bombings in San Luis, Mexico, of the press when they stood up against the cartels in that area. And we became the sector that had more illegals crossing through there, more drugs than any other place along the U.S.-Mexico border. Then Operation Stone Garden under the Bush administration closed down, and the reason we have it is they closed down because of complaints. They closed down the border between Baja California and California. They did a very effective job. But all it is squeeze the balloon or the tube of toothpaste, and it came east to Yuma. Then shortly thereafter, they took the same program and instituted it in our sector. And you can have absolutely secure trade. The barium Goldwater range for the Air Force and the Marines, that is the premier practice and training ranges for our Air Forces in the world. But they were down to less than 50% utilization because of incursions that they were having through those areas. And we were dealing with this in our community. But when they decided to put the resources, Border Patrol, Customs, ICE, National Guard, they did build fences where it made sense. They also employed electronic technology. But what I think they've done more importantly in the Yuma sector is, without 1070 and without an employer sanctions bill, they learned to cooperate and coordinate. Every law enforcement, from tribal law enforcement to local law enforcement, county, state, and federal, work closely together on a daily basis. They've invested their money that they've gotten from Homeland Security to achieve total, absolute intercommunications capabilities with all levels of law enforcement. And they support each other. They're also working very closely with our business community and hand in hand with the agricultural community. And as a result of this, we've reduced the incursions by 96% in that sector. It is the only sector along the U.S.-Mexico border, other than some in California now. It's certainly the only sector in Arizona that is now deemed secure. So it can be done. There are best practices available, and that's why I'm involved in the Border Security Committee, because I want to take that message and hopefully, rather than be in an adversarial role with the federal government, to see if we can't, by working together with the tribal and federal government, achieve what we've done in Yuma and duplicate that along the U.S.-Mexico border, all along the Arizona border, so we can get back to having an opportunity to promote safe and legal trade in both commercial as well as people. Just a couple of other things I wanted to mention here. I ran a bill this year, HCM 2003, and what that was about was called the Commuter Worker Program. And what it was asking for from the current administration was a rule to relax some requirements in H-2A. In the Port of San Luis, we'll have as many as 20,000 daily workers, legal workers, with documentation crossing in the morning to work in agriculture, where 95% of the country's winter produce is produced in Yuma and surrounding valleys. These folks, and these employers are having to rent and lease entire apartment complexes and hotels because the H-2A program requires that they have to provide housing at great expense. Well, they sit empty because these people would certainly rather go home at night, be with their families, and that's what they do. They go home every night to San Luis, Mexico with their families, and all of this investment just sits idle there and raises the cost of produce and food in the United States. But they're having a lot of difficulty with our federal government, current administration, to even consider making any kinds of modifications and rules. So if we have a secure border, we can do that. I believe wholeheartedly we can have a secure border. But if we can't achieve the other and have a reasonable, accessible programs for legal work in the United States, then it's all going to be for naught, other than having the security. Because we won't have that legal opportunity for trade with Mexico and a great opportunity to improve our economy in Arizona and provide more jobs and opportunity in Arizona from that trade with Mexico. And I'll leave it at that.